Hello, everyone. I am here to do the book club book discussion for the month of August. You're going to have to excuse me because I'm recovering from a cold. But in August, I decided that I was going to create an online book club on the channel. And the pick that I picked for the month of August was Julia Armfield's Our Wives Under the Sea. And this is not a book that I would usually go for. So if you are gonna be here, we are discussing this book, so there is gonna be spoilers and things here. So if that is something that you've not read yet, then please look away and don't listen, and maybe watch it after you have read it. So it was a short book. It was only just over 200 pages, but I feel like a lot of stuff happened within that time. And I think it was really fascinating because this book was written before the submarine disaster happened in, I believe it was May or June of this year. And I feel like with that disaster happening, it brought a lot of light to this book in a way that I didn't expect it to. A lot of the fears and things that happened with one of the main characters who was in the submarine, it kind of glimmered light into what it would have been like for them. So I feel like this book had more of an impact on me due to that. So that was quite fascinating. Um, but we're gonna start talking about it. If anyone is here and they want to say hello, please feel free to comment down below and say hello. Because I would love to discuss this book with you. Now, there is a book club pick for the month of September, and that one is How High We Go in the Dark. And this is kind of like a sci-fi kind of one. So if you would like to join in that, there will be a discussion for that probably at the end of September, roughly. So yes. Hey Steph, how's it going? Thank you very much for joining. Oh, I almost knocked us over. Hey, I binged it yesterday. What did you think about it? Like, what was your rating for this book? I'm quite intrigued because I've not heard a lot about this one online. A few people have read it, but it's not been like a massively talked about book. So I'm just really intrigued to see what your thoughts are. My camera is going to be annoying today. I apologize about that. But yeah, what was your rating? I believe I gave it 4 stars if I remember correctly. Let me just have a little look on Goodreads and see what I rated it. I'm pretty sure it was 4 stars, but it could have been 5. It was 5, so I gave it 5 stars. What did you guys rate it? And also, I feel like for it being such a small book, I feel like it packed like a lot into it. And I really want to talk about the ending and see what everybody's thoughts and opinions are on the ending, because I think I have an idea of exactly what's happened, but I could be completely wrong. So I would love to hear like everybody else's interpretations of the ending as well. So just a brief bit about the book. When Leah finally returns after a deep sea mission that ended in catastrophe, her wife Miri knows that something is wrong. Whatever happened in that vessel stranded on the ocean floor, Leah has carried part of it with her onto dry land and into their home. As Miri searches for answers to her wife's altered state, she must face the possibility that the woman she loves is slipping from her grasp. So that is sort of like a rough summary of it, but we're going to delve in a little bit deeper. Steph, I gave it 3 stars. Wasn't my normal book and had me confused at points. It's something that I'm not sure I would read again, though. I would agree with that. Even though I've given it 5 stars, I don't feel like it's going to be a book that I need to reread. I enjoyed the journey whilst I was on it, but I don't know if it's a journey that I would like to go on again. I feel that it was quite confusing as well, especially with the ending. Like I was saying, I don't know whether I've picked the book up right or wrong. I don't know if maybe I wasn't smart enough to figure out the ending. I I don't know. It's quite a strange one. It really made me think, because I think I understand the concept, but I don't know. Um, I gave it 4 stars. Overall, I really loved the atmosphere, but some of it got a bit repetitive, and the ending was meh. I can understand that. So let's just delve into the book. What did everyone think of like Leah and Miri's relationship? Because the way it's kind of portrayed at the start, before Leah goes down in the submarine, it kind of feels like they had a really good relationship, that they got on really well, that they gelled really well. They'd made so many good memories. Like their love blossomed really quickly, and it was like a beautiful kind of love. That's the impression I got of their relationship at the start. And then I feel like once Leah came back, it was just very disjointed. But obviously, Leah has been stuck on a submarine. I don't remember them saying how long she was stuck there, like stuck down there for. And also, another bit that kind of baffled me a little bit as well was when the submarine just randomly starts working again. Did that confuse anyone else? Like, how long had they been down there for? And like then the submarine just like the dashboard just lit up again and they were ready to rock and roll. Surely if they had fallen that far down into the water, that, you know, it wouldn't be that easy to just press a button and be like back up, you know? I loved it. The relationship felt very, very real to me. I agree. I feel like relationships, there's lots of tests and things that happen in relationships, and I feel like Leah going down there was a massive test for their relationship. And it just kind of felt the way it would feel if somebody disappeared for that long and then they came back as like a different person. She was gone 6 months. So I've just totally forgotten how long they were gone for. So being in a submarine for 6 months, that's a really long time. And Miri being up on land, not knowing what's happening with Leah, like I feel like as well, the company that sent her down there didn't really seem to be very helpful in any way, shape, or form. They were taking no liability for the fact that Leah wasn't there. They weren't explaining anything to Miri, like telling her like what was going on. For all she knew, like her wife could have passed away, like anything could have happened. Um Supposedly in quarantine on land for 2 weeks during that time. Was that when they were in quarantine after they came back up? Because I don't think they told Miri that Leah had resurfaced at that point. I think they had told her that she'd been in quarantine for 2 weeks. But I mean, what were they doing putting her in quarantine? Were they just kind of leaving her there, trying to figure out if she was gonna be okay? Like, there's so many unanswered questions that I felt was missing from this. And I mean, it was a short book, so obviously it won't be as in depth if it was like a 700-page book. It didn't need to be a 700-page book, but I just feel like there maybe was more questions that I was left with after I finished it. Yeah, I was confused with the ending as well. I was like, is that where they're going to leave it? Yes, like why did it start working again? Like nothing happened after months of it not working. Yeah, that really baffled me. I just didn't understand the lighting up of it. And then, okay, here we go. Also, did they have a 6 month supply of food and water? Like, were they preparing for them to be down there for 6 months? There's just so many little bits in it that just don't match up in my brain, and it left me with so many questions. Yeah, after they came up, especially since she was only supposed to be gone 3 weeks, we really had no support because she didn't. I agree, and I feel really bad for Miri as well. Like my heart really broke for her because she hid what was going on with Leah. She didn't want anyone to know that Leah came back the way that she did. She was kind of isolating herself. She wasn't being involved in things with her friends so much. She was just keeping it a massive secret that Leah wasn't doing well and that her wife was basically disappearing in front of her eyes. And all these weird bodily changes were occurring and Leah couldn't explain it. And just the fact that it shows how much love Miri had for Leah was the fact that she was trying to accommodate everything for her with like the saltwater baths, and like even though she thought it was really strange and she didn't understand it, She really wanted to make sure that Leah was as comfortable as possible in her surroundings that she was in now, which I think is so beautiful, to have that kind of love, that you would dedicate that time and effort to make sure that they were comfortable in such a bizarre situation. Confining her friends. I love the bits about the husband in space and missing person groups, support groups. Yeah, I thought that was an amazing part. The fact that Leah had to like look out there for some sort of outlet and to have some sort of release to find out how to deal with it. I thought that was such a good touch, and I really liked the support groups. Yeah, I needed more answers than I was able to give. Yep, I 100% agree, Steph. That was one of the mysteries. The company said they had a few months' food, but Leah commented that she was confused that the food supply never went down, but we don't know for sure how long it was. Does anyone think that they had a purpose to go down there? Because Leah was convinced that she was going down there to explore and to see things that were on the depths of the ocean. Do you feel like this was some form of experiment, that they wanted to see how long people could live down there for? I feel like that was more of an experiment, personally, than. Sorry, that was my chair that made that noise. I feel like it was an experiment rather than adventure to go down and explore the depths of the ocean. I think it was sold in that way for Leah to be convinced to go down, and the others that were there. What did everybody think about the other characters that were down in the submarine as well? I cannot for the life of me remember their names though, but there was obviously the person that went out the escape hatch. I'm not really sure about that part of it. I felt a bit like, I don't know, they just didn't know how to cope with it, and they thought the easiest thing to do was try and escape. But it was strange. And then wasn't there the little doll as well that kept getting moved around? And it freaked Leah out a bit, and she would wake up in the middle of the night, this little figure thing was like in her face, or it was in the shower, or it was in random places. Yeah, I don't know. This book just, it gave me so many questions, and that ending was just kind of like, say what? So my thoughts on the ending was, obviously Leah was declining quite dramatically, and Miri was like, how can I fix this? What's the way to fix this? I know. We'll take her to the ocean. Her body obviously wants to be part of the ocean, so let's just release her into the ocean. And she just slips away. Like, what was that about? Seriously. Steph thinks the company were maybe experimenting with them rather than people who went down knowing that they were going for that. I 100% agree. I genuinely think it was an experiment to see how people were going to cope with that kind of pressure underwater, what would happen to them when they came back up. I think that they maybe were in control of the submarine, so they were able to switch it back on, and that's like, they were left there for so long. There's no way that it would have worked again. So I think there's very big elements of the fact that it was all experimentational. It's possible. I did wonder if it was going to be revealed that they were only down there for a few weeks, and then the rest of the time they were actually in quarantine or being tested on or something. That's a really good. That's a really good thought. The possibility could be that they were actually only there for a small period of time, but Leah thought that it was a longer period of time, because obviously it would be quite traumatic to be in that situation and realize that you obviously can't get back up. So that would play tricks on your mind, and I feel like that would do something to your brain. So the fact is, she could have been back on land like way before that, and she, like, the thought even crossed my mind that they were in some kind of simulation and they weren't even in the sea. Like, that crossed my mind at one point in the book. I really think that's too far outside the box, but it did cross my mind because it made me think so many things as I was reading it, because I thought, if it is an experiment, who's to say they're not like at the bottom of like a big swimming pool or something, and they're being made to think that they're trapped somewhere when they're absolutely not. I do think it's really wrong of the company to have played it off like everything was okay, Leah was fine, nothing untoward was happening. They took no responsibility for anything. And I feel really sorry for the sister of the woman who passed away, because that happened to someone that she was related to, and it was awful. And I feel like they just did nothing at all for her. It was awful. Hadn't thought of the fact it was a simulator. I just wish there had been a resolution about the company. They just disappeared and then were forgotten by the company. I 100% agree. I feel like there wasn't a big enough focus on the company and them not being held accountable for it. You would think that that type of thing would be in the press and everything as well. I didn't get any sort of indication that the press or anything were involved. Obviously, we have seen a situation with a submarine and how much press was involved with that. So I find it really bizarre that there wasn't reporters or anyone coming to ask like how Leah was. Even I would have thought that doctors or something would have been coming to regularly check on Leah if she'd been in quarantine for that time and they had looked into her and seen what was happening to her body. You would think there would be regular doctor appointments or like physicians or something, but it just severely lacked that. It was quite strange. That was a weird part when they wouldn't give the sister her things until the boss came out and gave her them, and acted super weird. Yeah, I found that really strange. Why would you refuse to give someone's belongings of someone that passed away through something work related? What would they want to keep them for? Like, that doesn't make sense to me either. What would you keep them for? Also, not knowing what happened to the third guy, no mention at all of it. If he even came back. That's true. There's a lot of mention of him, obviously, in the submarine with Leah, because he was there. She's describing her experience, but there was nothing about him afterwards. No conversation about him. She didn't even really mention him. The sister of the person that passed away, there was no mention of the guy either there. It was just like he was just down there in the submarine, part of the experience, and then he was dropped as well. I can't remember if it was a reputable company like the government, or was it some weird setup company who could have taken their money and ran. Who knows? They don't really go into it in a huge way. Like I said, I feel like this story impacted me more and probably made me go more towards a 5-star, just because it felt so relatable to the tragedy that happened with the submarine a couple of months ago. I don't know if this is a book that you read like last month or if you'd read it before and you're just joining. But I feel like it impacted me a lot more because I'd been following the news story and just how horrific that was. And I mean, this must have been absolutely horrific for Leah, not knowing if you're going to come back or not. And Miri just sitting at home like a sitting duck, just waiting to see if her wife's coming back. And when her wife does come back, everything's different. Like, what did you think about what was happening to Leah's body? Like, what was your idea of what was happening to her? Like, at the end, what are your thoughts about the ending? Like, it was meh. It was meh. It was such a build up, and then it was just dropped into the sea. Just dropped straight into the sea. I read it last month in time for the live show. I'm very sorry that this live show took so long. I do apologise. Hopefully next month's one will be closer to when we read it. I did definitely think about it as I was reading it, especially with the weird sounds and talking about being imploded. Yeah, I thought about it quite a lot. When I picked it for the book club, I didn't really register in my brain how close to home that would be for something that happened. I just had this book on my shelf for quite some time and I thought it was short and it's something totally different and out there and not something I would usually pick up. And I thought, yeah, that's perfect. That'll be the first book. And then as I was going into it and I was reading it, I thought, wow, this is really impactful in a way I didn't think it was going to be, but I still really enjoyed it. So yeah, what were your thoughts about the ending? Like, what do you think happened at the ending? Like I said to you, I feel like with all the pressure and everything, I don't know, like, was there like mermaid vibes? Like, I don't know. There was a lot, like, was she a fish now? Like, what was it? I was confused, but think that's because I couldn't figure out how she changed into a sea creature and her wife just let her go. Not sure I could just let someone go like that. Do you know what's really funny about that scene when she lets her go into the ocean, when she's kind of like melting, like her body's just melting and she's like, she needs to be in seawater, let's just take her there. I thought she was gonna like take her there, bathe her there so that she was kind of more in her climate. No, she let her go. It was like a Titanic moment when it was like, Jack, I'll never let you go. That played in my head when I watched that. And when I watched it, when I read it, it just reminded me of that, because it was just kind of like, why would you let someone go that you love so much? Like, you've looked after her and taken care of her and tried to take everything into consideration and make her life more comfortable because she's been out in the sea. And why on earth would you just drop them? I don't understand it. Why would you go through all that effort to just let them go? And I feel like Miri wasn't even that upset that she let her go either. She just kind of like was like, okay, goodbye. Like, this is where you live now. I took it as she was like fish type thing, given the gills forming. Yeah, I did find it really bizarre that obviously the gills and things were starting to form. And there was a part in my brain that was like, would that wouldn't happen. Like, it felt very fantastical, that it's just not something that would be terribly realistic. But then again, I don't know how the human body works when it's under that much pressure. Like, there's so much pressure underwater. So I don't know what would happen. But because you're in the submarine, I don't understand why she would need so much salt water when she's out of the submarine, because there was no water in the submarine. So why would she have climatized to that? I think she was changed by the sea by being that deep, because fish that deep don't have bones and are squishy and weird. That she was changed by the trauma. She couldn't save her. I don't think it was supposed to be realistic. I think it was supposed to be fantastical. I'm glad that it was supposed to be fantastical, because there was a small part of me that was just like, that won't work. But that's a really good point. I didn't really think of it in this way. I don't really know much about fish under the sea and like the depth levels or anything like that. I am not. If I was on like University Challenge or like one of those quiz TV shows and someone asked me a question, I would not know the answer to anything about that. But I did not know that fish that deep don't have bones and are squishy and weird. I did not know that. So that is really cool. I really thank you. I really like the fact that I now know that. I thought it was a metaphor. Yeah, I guess yeah, it would be. Um, I feel like it was a good book. The humanness of it was really good, and the relationship was very believable, and I really enjoyed the relationship, and I think that's why I gave it a 5 star, because there were so many questions I had on it, but the relationship just felt so real and so raw, and it's very difficult to make you feel the emotions of your characters. And I think that Julia Armfield did a really good job of that, and it just felt so real, and that's why I loved it. We had the same reaction, Katie. It was mentioned during the book there's a famous ugly fish that just looks that way in land. I didn't even pick that up. I did not pick that up at all. Um, I I tabbed this book a couple of times. I can't even remember what some of the tabs were. Let's have a look. What was the first tab I did? So I tabbed, what I'm saying is the pain is in the aftermath more than is the break. There was something about that I just really, really liked. There was a lot of humanity I felt in this book, and just the way things were described. I don't feel like it was drawn out. I feel like not a huge amount of stuff happened in it, but I didn't feel like I was bored when I was reading it. I just felt very connected to the characters, which is really good. I enjoy that. I agree. I did think the book had some real banging lines. Yeah, it banging banger lines. I agree. I just think there was some really beautifully written quotes in this book, and it helped carry it all the way through to the end. And I think it just made it that little bit more raw as well. I remember them seeing some weird fish through the porthole and wonder if she transformed into it after seeing it. That's a really interesting concept. I feel like I've forgotten a little bit of this book now, and it probably doesn't help that I've got a fuzzy head being full of the cold. But the not the jellyfish, the octopus. Was it Pamela? Was that the octopus was called? I really liked that part of the story. I thought it was really cute that the postcard and everything came about, and Pamela was obviously the octopus that she looked after when she worked there. I thought that was cute that all merged together and became part of the relationship. Yeah, the big creature that she was drawn to, and then she could only see eyes when talking to the therapist. Yep. There was just there was a lot of sea life in this, and for someone that doesn't have a lot of understanding over sea life, I feel like I've missed things, but you guys have like picked up on it, and I think that's great. And that's what's good about book discussions, because people notice different parts of things that not everybody notices. What else did I tab? I also tabbed. Problem is, I read that ultimately you're really the one who has to kill them, or not kill them, but the idea of them. You have to make them choose. You have to make a choice to make it end, to let it end. I thought that was a really good quote as well. And what else did we tab? I can't even remember what else it tabbed. Do you know? Oh, Sam said, "Is everyone's conviction that love is different from them for them somehow harder?" Do you know what I mean? I just don't think it's that complicated, honestly. If you're with the wrong person, it's hard. It's just another way of thinking you're special, the way everyone does when they are a teenager. You think you aren't able to love, except that of course you are. You think you aren't able to love correctly or the same as everyone else, except that of course you are. You just haven't had a chance to do it yet. You're not special. You're just waiting. That was my favourite quote in that book. I loved it. It just hits the nail on the head. It was so good. I enjoyed the Pamela stuff too. I just thought it was cute, and it merged together so beautifully in their relationship. To be fair, I read this whole thing yesterday in anticipation of this live stream, so I'm fresh. Well, I'm glad you're fresh, because I am not, which is not good. But to be fair, I think I finished this in the middle of August, possibly. So it's almost a month since I've read it, and like I said, I've got cold brain, and it's not great. That's a great quick I can't even speak. That's a great quote too. There's a lot of great stuff about relationships. I just feel like the relationship blossomed all the way through to the end, even though there was so many bumps in the road. And I think it is a really good way to show that if two people are really in love, they can overcome the biggest of life challenges. And yes, people change and they evolve. Like obviously everybody changes and evolves as they grow up or they grow older, and people's personalities change slightly, and like they grow and develop in different rates from the other person. And I think it's just nice to see that Leah and Miri, even though they had this most beautiful bond and relationship at the beginning, and then obviously Leah came back and it was very disjointed and very difficult for Miri to try and adapt and understand what's going on, because Miri's obviously trying to get through to Leah and Leah's not discussing it because for some reason she doesn't want to discuss it. And then it's kind of blossoms into Miri looking after Leah, and then Leah finding in her heart that the best thing to do is to let Leah go. And that's really bittersweet, because she's looked after her and coddled her and made sure that she's providing everything she can for her. and trying to go with the change. Yet at the end of the day, she knows that Leah wants to be in the sea. That is probably where she belongs now. Like, their life can't be the way it once was. And the fact that Miri has to take that on board and basically accept that and let go of the love of her life, it was so heartbreaking for Miri. I don't know who I felt more sorry for, whether it was Leah with like her whole world changing, her whole body, like everything around her changing. I feel like Miri, for me, it was worse for her because she watched this person disappear and had to let them go. Whereas I feel like Leah's mind was not in the same place that Miri's was. So I feel like it was easier for Leah to just be like, okay, this is where I belong, and not fighting it, not disagreeing. And Miri had to make the decision to be like, well, here we are. It was heartbreaking. I think it was clear how much they loved each other, even though they didn't know how to communicate once Leah changed. Definitely. And obviously, communication is such a big part of relationships. And if there's no communication, then it's very difficult to bond, to get past things, to evolve, to change. And I think because there was such a barrier, when Leah came back, it was very difficult for the communication. And I think it was really difficult for Miri. And like I said, I really felt for her because it must have been like speaking to a brick wall, like all the time, because she doesn't know what she wants. She doesn't know what she needs. She starts slowly figuring out what she needs. Oh, she needs to drink salt water. That's a bit strange. Okay, well, that's obviously how she's going to survive now. So need to adapt. Here you go. Here's the water. Making sure she had the baths, cleaning the bathroom constantly after she's had these baths. Leah spending all day in the bath, like that can't be good for you. But Miri goes, okay, well, that's what she needs, so that's what she'll get. Whatever she needs, she'll get it from me. And it must just be so draining to have been Miri and have to adapt in that way. Or maybe they never did. The situation just brought it to the forefront. Possibly, yeah. I felt like Leah was just disassociated. She couldn't cope with being back on land mentally, and then physically as she slowly deteriorated and stopped walking. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like Leah just was so not part of the relationship anymore. Like, there was small little twinkles of the relationship though, like there were small little recognitions that Miri would do something and Leah would respond in a way that she would have previously before she went away. And I thought that was so cute, but obviously so devastating for Miri because she can see a little glimpse of her wife there, but she just can't hold on to it because before she knows, she blinks and it's away again. And that is incredibly sad. Incredibly sad. But yeah. Does anybody else have any final thoughts on the book? I can't believe that we've just spoke for 30 minutes about this book, and I feel like I know more about this book now than I did before, which is great. Must have felt like she was caring for a baby who didn't know what they wanted and she had to figure it out, and she didn't need that for her and their future. Yeah, there could have been an aspect of that as well, because there was a lot to do for Leah. Like, it wasn't just a simple, here you go, here's some water in a bath. Like, there was a lot she had to do. So yeah, she maybe did just think, this is not our future. This is not what we both signed up for. Yeah, I agree. So many emotions in those moments. You felt Miri's helplessness. Yeah, 100%. I think Miri felt so helpless, but she tried her best to just do what she could. And it goes to show that love can overcome all, because I feel like it was Miri's love for Leah that made Miri let Leah go. And I think it's a good concept because a lot of people, no matter how much they love someone, they sometimes don't let it go. So it was good for that. I felt it was more like related to when she was taking care of her mother and how it was similar and different. That's very true, because she obviously had all of that traumatic experience, and then Leah went away, and then Leah came back as a different person. She was having to care again. So it must have been really traumatic for Miri to then have to do the same thing for her wife when that was not expected at all. She was going on a mission in a submarine. Who knew she was going to come back in that way? That was not going to be, that was, you know, it was wild wild. I'm just going to check the calendar because I'm going to have a look and see when I'm going to do the live show for How High We Go in the Dark. Are you guys going to be reading September's book club pick? Also, if you can think of a book club name for me, that would also be great, because I am stumped at a book club name, so it's just kind of the channel's book club. I feel like it would probably be like the beginning of October that I would start it. And in October, if you have any suggestions for what you would like to read in October, something spooky, horror like, we can go with the seasons. That is no problem at all. But yeah, I feel like it'll be early October, but I will keep you all updated on Twitter when that will be. But I'm going to have to read that book because I've not read it yet. I'm waiting until later on in the month so that I'm not as fuzzy brained as I am now. I'll check it out. Yeah, I've got the book somewhere in my flat. I just can't remember where I've put it. Cool. Like I said, if you can think of any book club names, give me a little message. If you've got any book club ideas, like any picks that you would like to put forward, you can find me on Twitter under Sitting Katie, or you can even comment on any of the book discussion videos or on any of the book club pick announcement videos. You can DM me if you're reading stuff, tell me that you're excited. This was more successful than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be sitting here speaking to myself, so thank you very much for joining me. Great chat. Perfect. I'm so glad that you were here. I hope you guys all have a nice evening or daytime, whatever time of the day it is for you. And hopefully I will see you next month, well, at the end / beginning of next month, for September's pick. I couldn't even remember what month it was. Fuzzy brain, not good. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I feel like I have went into this book with yous and we have got such a great depth of it, and I understand it more than I did when I read it, and that's what makes book discussions so good. You too. Thank you. Right. I will see you all later on. Thank you. Bye.